Okay, so when you're trying to come up with an idea for a concept, um, there's some certain devices that we can explore in graphic design, and they can be very confusing, but they can also be very helpful. So we are going to look at metaphors. So uh, they can be fairly complex, so I'll try and explain them a little bit. So, in a word, a metaphor is an unexpected comparison of two dissimilar objects. So, for instance, comparing a car to a cheetah because of its speed capability, or comparing a car to a spaceship because of innovative technology. Those are metaphors, right? So you are finding ways to describe um, images using different ideas. The important consequences of these two examples: metaphor is simple, clean, and a powerful way to represent advantages of a product. So when you're creating a metaphor, you try you can make a list. Try to express a product's advantage in one word. Is it speedy, safety, secure? Does it give you freedom? Does it connect with other people? So making lists of these things about its attributes can certainly help. So to create a visual metaphor, so if we sort of look, well, first of all, let's look at what we have on screen right now. This is sort of showing the planet, but also sort of showing the planet as if it needs help, right? So it's the planet is being described as having a sort of a life preserver on, and that's a way to show that create a common message. To create a visual metaphor, you can start by making a list of attributes. Sometimes visual metaphors are based on sayings as well. So, if you think about it, think about an example. It could be a person with their head in the clouds, right? So that phrase is basically a metaphor, and that metaphor paints a picture fairly clearly. So in design, there's examples of metaphors on the computer you're working on. So if you think about some of the metaphors that Apple has used, a shop or the computer and shopping cart, right, for buying things is basically a really simple metaphor. Or the trash can on your computer. Deleting files is a complex thing for a computer, but showing a trash can to get rid of files is a really basic metaphor, right? So they can be used in a lot of different ways. So here's an example of a serial killer. So it's more of a pun than a metaphor, but you can see this WWF ad for global warming, right? So the idea that this penguin is melting instead of just showing something like an iceberg that you would typically see. So that is a visual metaphor, right? The idea that you could go to Playland and the rides will make you scream, right? So there's basically a silhouette of a megaphone. That's a metaphor instead of actually showing someone screaming. So they can be complicated, but you can find them. You can find them in design everywhere. And then there's other types of metaphors as well. So amplification is another type of device that we use in design. So basically it involves a concept through words or images that amplifies the actual subject that it's looking at. So this ad that we're looking at here, I'll just zoom in a little bit. So this ad is showing a guy sort of doing his laundry, and on the inside there's instead of it actually being a machine, it's someone in there with an old-fashioned wash pan, and the ad is actually about life is too short for the wrong job. So meaning that basically this person, you know, is forced to do this type of work. And that's sort of amplification. It's sort of exaggeration. Another type of metaphor, well, not necessarily a metaphor, but using analogy in design and advertising it is also a very sort of common way to get complex ideas across. So an analogy compares two things that are similar, and it draws a connection between the two. So it allows the designer to do something really interesting that you wouldn't normally think. So if you have a look at the WWF ad here, before it's too late. So it's basically showing forest that's in the shape of lungs. Those lungs are meant to represent sort of what's happening to the earth, that the forests are the lungs of the earth, and you can sort of see on these forests there's a big sort of scorched lung there. So that's kind of an analogy, drawing two things together, right? Now hyperbole is counter to understatement. So it's a deliberate exaggeration that is presented for emphasis. So oftentimes it's dramatic and it's a little bit unreal, but it's there to sort of attract and be interesting. So we can see this ad for a barber, and it basically says "Tame the Beast." So in this case, there is a bit of a metaphor, and there is that the beast actually represents a hairy person, right? And you can sort of see that, to exaggerate it, you can sort of see how this bear is being sort of sculpted and has a mustache and beard. And I'll show you another example of that. So an ad for really sour candies, right? So the hyperbole is how sour the actual ad, how sour the candy is, and how that distorts this person's face, right? So that's hyperbole. Now the last one is metonymy. It's related to a metaphor, but it uses images that are actually closely related to the actual thing that's being compared. So you can sort of see these three examples. The sort of London logos that the O's actually represent, or the O's actually represent the tires on a double-decker bus. Beware the Heat is sort of, it's taking the Tabasco sauce bottle and turning it into fire extinguishers. And in the right one, it's taking the Tabasco bottle and turning it into a hand grenade. So those are metaphors, but they're actually using images that are closely related to the subject themselves. So a couple examples. So farmer milking a cow, and to show how, you know, the level of milk coming out is basically a visual metaphor for emptying the cow. So to celebrate Halloween, Jeep put out a series of ads, and it's basically comparing their product by showing the grill on some very sort of iconic visuals for Halloween. So putting together two different things, right? The plastic bottle, how it's destroying the earth, and turning the plastic bottle basically into it's a metaphor. Well, the metaphor is really that the bomb is replaced by the bottle in a visual that looks like it's being dropped out of a plane. So writing frees the innocent. So you can sort of see that the metaphor is basically picture an image of a prison with the lights sort of shining out. But then when you look at it closely, it's also, if you flip it the other way, it looks like the end of a pencil. And there's a series, this was a series for Amnesty. So you see in this one, it's a writing defends freedom of the press. So you see a press photographer, but also looks like a pencil if you look at it the other way, right? Writing saves refugees. So you can see that it's a boat of refugees with waves coming out, but if you look at it the other way, it makes the shape of a pencil. So really nice sort of simple metaphors here. Person with a megaphone, and then writing carries their voice. So these were a series of ads basically trying to get across the message that if you wear a mask, some of the things that you like to do will come back sooner. So you can sort of see the one on the very far right. It says, "Miss the office, back to normal is up to you." So it shows a computer monitor being a metaphor for a mask, right? So it's flipping the two. Miss birthday parties, wear a mask, right? So you see the box is the mask. Miss coffee with friends, so you see the coffee, and you sort of get the idea. So it's flipping, the idea of what the mask is. And finally, a really hokey poster, just to sort of show you the difference, because a lot of people sort of get similes and metaphors. So similes use words like or as, and metaphors directly compare them to the thing. So if you look at the metaphors, she is a fish, they were tornadoes at recess. So what they're saying is they were those things. They are those things. The snow was a blanket, right? Where similes are she was like two peas, or they were like two peas in a pod, or as sweet as apple pie, or sparkle like a diamond. So they are kind of like a metaphor, and they're both used in advertising. But you can see in metaphors, you're basically saying someone is those things. So taking the idea of a metaphor, Mitsubishi is basically saying their truck is a rhino. And so you can sort of see the play here is that the truck is the rhino, and then they'll put this nice sort of exterior on top of the rhino. So it's a direct comparison, right? And so you can sort of see another example of those styles of ads. It's basically horsepower, right? And then basically saying this truck has a lot of horsepower, and then you can see that they're putting the cover, the exterior over top of it.